Today, I'm going to share with you the three elements of effective boundaries without yelling. If you are a parent of a sensitive child or a neurodivergent child, and you're like, hey, I want to raise my children without the chancla, if you're Latino like me, or without spanking, or I want to raise my children without yelling, but I still want to keep structure. I still want to keep rules and boundaries, and I want to foster respect. How do I do this? This is the podcast episode for you. I'm going to share with you the three elements of an effective boundary that is what I teach and coach my clients in HIC Parenting. Hello, my name is Marcela Collier. Welcome to another episode of the Parenting with Understanding podcast. I am your host and the founder of HIC Parenting Education Agency. My team of coaches and I have served 14,151 parents of sensitive and neurodivergent kids, bring peace to their parenting, break free from reactivity, and raise secure children. And one very important topic that we train them on is how to set boundaries without yelling, without the chancla, without methods that go against their values. And if this is you, stay because at the end of this podcast episode, you're going to have the same exact training with this episode. Okay, so let's talk about them. There are three elements. Number one, effective boundaries without yelling, without methods that go against our values, provide a range of freedom. A lot of us grew up in environments that Hmm. These environments were a little hard because we did not have a range of freedom. Did you grow up in an environment where all you heard was no, 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 no all day? Don't do this. Don't take that. Get down. I won't let you to talk to me that way. You don't say no to mom. You don't say no to your uncle. You don't, everything was no. And then you grew up with this feeling out of control. And parents who grew up feeling out of control tend to feel out of control in their parenting. So if you feel out of control in your parenting, it's not your kid's fault, nor yours. It's the way that you were raised. You were raised feeling out of control. So it is hard or it is a challenge to feel in control because it's something new. One thing that helps kids feel in control is to know what they can do instead of what they cannot do. What is the range of freedom? There is a very clear difference between limits and boundaries. No, between limits, yes, and boundaries. I'm sorry. So, limits is the line. What's the line? Let's just say your line is we don't write on the walls. That's your line. Don't go beyond that. Don't try to go to touch the line. That's a limit. A boundary is okay, I can move within this range. I remember when I came new to the United States, I got my green card. Now I'm a citizen. But when I got my green card, they told me just don't leave the United States until you get your citizenship. That was my range of freedom. I went everywhere. I went to Hawaii. I went to Michigan. I think that was the time of my life that I traveled the most in the US. So I did travel a lot, but I had a clear limit. I couldn't leave the country. But the thing is, when we transfer it to our parenting, I have a question for you. How much of a range of freedom you are giving your children when you communicate limits and boundaries? Are you all the time telling them no, 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 no? Or you are telling them, yes, this is the limit, but then, yes, you have all this range of freedom. I just knock my water cup if you're watching to this podcast episode. And by the way, before I keep moving forward, I forgot in the beginning of this episode if the Parenting with Understanding podcast has given you insight, information, transformation, would you give us a positive review? Just open the description of this podcast, write your 5-star positive review. I would love 5 stars. And that will help us to get to more parents. So let's go back to this topic. How would it look like at a practical level, that range of freedom? So, at a practical level, that range of freedom looks like, let me give you an example. Let's just say that your limit is no writing on the wall. So that's your limit. And let's just say that you see your child going there, testing that limit, or maybe testing if that limit is really a limit. So what are you going to do about it? Limits, it's what you are going to do about it so the child doesn't step on them or go beyond them. And boundaries is the range of freedom. So it could look like something like this. Hey baby, we don't write on the wall, remember? That's the rule. We don't write on the wall. And then go to the range of freedom. Tell me 2 or 3 ways we can write. We can write on paper, we can write on a chalkboard, we can write, where else? Do you have any ideas? Do you have any idea? Maybe your child will give you an idea. My son told me the other day, well, I could put a paper on the wall and write on it. I'm like, okay, are you comfortable with that? If you know your son or daughter can handle that, go for it. It's their idea. They're more willing to follow it because it's their idea, not yours. So those are boundaries and limits at a practical level. But Marcela, what about if they keep writing on the wall? Remember that limits is not what they do, it's something you do to ensure that happens. So what would it be? In this case, it depends of the age. It does really depend. Because if there are two itty bitty 2-year olds, they will have a really hard time giving up the markers because they have no impulse control. They cannot regulate own behavior that well. It's brain development. So the younger your children are, the more decisions you have to make for them. And sometimes that requires physical intervention. Now, the difference between a physical intervention between a secure parent and a scary parent is how you come across. So one thing is to say, "Give me the marker," and then you snatch the marker out of the kid. Another thing is to say, "Hey, baby, remember right here on the wall, and right here on the paper, or go somewhere else." And if they keep writing on the wall, I see that you need help following the instruction. Mom is going to help you. And then you go and physically remove them off the wall if they're little kids. If they're older kids, they have more impulse control. They can reason with you a lot more. You can talk about consequences and let them choose. You're choosing your behavior, then you're choosing your consequence. And in this house, the consequence of writing on the walls is that you're not going to have these markers. I'm sorry, and I'm not going to buy any more art supplies until we nail this down. Put it on them. They usually come to their senses 2 or 3 minutes later and do it. But if we come overpowering and like, you're not listening to me and yelling, that's when our children dig their heels even more and they won't follow the limit. I have the story of one of our clients. His name is Roberto. He used to believe in spanking. He used to believe that's how I get my daughter to listen to me, and she needs to learn to respect me. And that was his way of teaching her respect and to follow instructions, because he's Latino, and then he says that that's how he grew up. So what happened? He spanked her twice. The second time he was like, wait a second, if this would have worked, it would have worked on the first time, and I spanked her the second time. Number two, she's scared of me. Do I want that? What kind of relationship do I want with my daughter long term? So he said, enough is enough. I want my daughter to feel safe with me. He enrolled in HIC Parenting. He went through coaching for 10 weeks. And this is his result after learning how to be a secure parent and how to set boundaries in safety.
I started the parenting coaching. Spanked my daughter that one. I spanked her twice. I remember one time it broke my heart, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, she is scared of me." After that happened, I said, "This does not work," and that's when I was like, "Okay." I saw your videos on Instagram, and I was like, I really resonated with your message. So I understood that, and I was like, "Okay, I need to do better as a parent."
Roberto, how do you feel in your parenting after all the work here in HIC Parenting with Holly, with the program?
I'm a different parent. I don't know how that, like I tell that to Elena sometimes. We're sitting down, and I'm like, "Babe, I'm a different parent now." And I'm like, "I'm proud of us." I think 2 weeks ago, a week ago, I'm like, "Babe," I was like, "I'm proud of us." I'm like, "We're different parents." I was like, "If we didn't take the class, we'd be completely different." And this really, affects the trajectory. Like, if I didn't do this, where would I be in 20 years? That's what I kept thinking. Where would my relationship with my daughter be in 20 years? And so these little things that I've done with the coaching with HIC, like, I'm like, "Oh, I'll be friends with my daughter. She's going to love me. She's not going to be scared of me. She's going to come to me with her problems. I love my dad." And be like, wow.
That was Roberto with just a few weeks of coaching to learn how to be safe, to teach his daughter to respect him and to follow instructions and to have positive behavior. And it all started with him, with learning how to talk, how to communicate, how to manage his own emotions, and how to relate to her peacefully. He started with a free class where he learned the parenting with understanding system to break free from reactions and raise emotionally healthy children. And from this free class, he started transforming his parenting. And you can access that free class now. You can find that free class on hicparenting.com. I'm going to leave a card up here or somewhere down here in the description of this podcast episode. And you can start feeling a lot more secure in your parenting and raising secure children. You can start breaking free from yelling, from spanking, from any method that you feel like is the last resort. It doesn't have to be. You can get there, and the answer is there. You just need to tap into it. This is completely free. Just go right now to hicparenting.com, and I'll see you at the other side. The second element of an effective boundary is that effective boundaries show how a system works, meaning that it's not connected to the personal interests of a parent or to the personal interests of somebody else. Let me give you an example. A personal interest. My dad, he had a personal interest. His personal interest was that he's autistic and then he needs quiet a lot. So he had a rule in the house that we needed to be quiet and play quietly all day. Who was the receptor of that, the benefit of that boundary, if that was a boundary? It was him. Now, I don't want to deny his needs because I'm autistic as well and I have ADHD and I get overwhelmed when my twins are going, a little crazy with the tone. But one thing is to understand how to take care of my needs, and another thing is to place our needs as our children's responsibility to take care of them. So, my encouragement for you is think about it. Think about the rules and boundaries that you have right now set up in your home. Do they show a children how the system works? Or is it more related to a personal interest or to meet a personal need? How would that work if it were to show us how our family system works? We will have balance. We would have balance of playtime, loud time, quiet time to meet everybody's needs. Because yes, it is true that my dad needs a lot of quiet time. It is also true that my brother and I as children needed loud time, expression time, show off time, creativity with running around time, to grow up, to develop ourselves, to develop our voice. In the interaction with my sibling is how I learned to develop my voice. And I had really, really hard time sticking up for myself and using my voice as an adult because I grew up shut down. Don't talk. Stay quiet. You're too loud. Did you have those kind of regulations in your own home growing up? I'm very curious. What were they? Let me know in the chat, in the comments, if you are watching from YouTube. What was one rule that you had to follow growing up that you're like, wait a second, what was the reason of this? Did you have to finish your full plate of food? Did you have to clean the whole house before going to soccer practice? Did you have like, what was one thing that you would think like, man, why, like I wouldn't put my children to do this, or why would I had to do this? Doesn't make sense now. Let me know in the comments. So effective boundaries show how a family system works. How a family system works. It's not about the parent, it's about the system. So let's just say that the expectation is that they come from school, they hang their backpacks on the hanger in the mud room, they leave their boots, their mud boots, or I don't, how do you call that, mud boots, they leave them in the mud room. Basically they take off the weather of their bodies before they enter the house. Does that honor a family system? Yes, because if there are babies in the house, they're not going to be crawling on mud, they're not going to be crawling on dirt. It keeps things organized. So when we communicate those boundaries, that's what we tell our kids, how it would benefit everybody, how it would benefit them, how it would benefit their sibling, how it would benefit grandma, how it would benefit all of us. Tomorrow you would not have to go and try to find your raincoat. It's gonna be hanged on the hanger. It's gonna be there. So you benefit from it too. It's not about I need you to do this. It's about we need to do this for all of us. So it does provide a range of freedom, and it does show how a family system works. Now let's intermingle the freedom portion. How the freedom portion could come when it comes to things like this, that they have to follow a sequence instruction. You hang the raincoat, you take your boots off, and then you come in the house. So it could be when things are a little tighter like that, then you ask them for ideas or you give them options that honor that sequence and that lets them know, hey, I have a little say here. So it could be that they choose the corner of the mat room where they're going to agree to put their boots on. Or let's just say that they choose with you or decorate with you the basket, the electronics basket, that they're going to put all the controllers and electronics in that basket before they start bedtime. And with you, they decide where to keep that basket, the time when they're going to turn all the controllers and electronics and put in the basket. So it is the same thing, but they just have a wiggle room to make decisions with you. So it doesn't sound like, hey, you're making the whole decision for them. And again, I'm going to go back to it. The younger they are, the more decisions you have to make for them. So the older they are, if your children are 10, co-create those boundaries, co-create those rules. Number 3, and I'm going to take a sip of water because I'm dry. Mm, tastes good. In Arizona, water tastes good. Number three, so they provide a range of freedom. They let us know how a family system works. Number three, they honor family values. And there is a clear difference between boundaries being created from fear rather than boundaries created from family values. So boundaries created from fear come from projection to the future. Let me give you an example of a boundary created from fear. So let's just say no, this happened. I work with a mom who she was very fearful that if her children didn't finish the whole plate of food, they were not going to grow up healthy. Okay, let's talk about a boundary from fear. So she was fearful if they were not going to end the full plate, they were going to grow up not healthy. And then how did we work through this? Let's go back to the value. What is the value that you want to offer to for them to learn and honor here? I want them to make healthy choices when it comes to food. Okay, great. Does this value is dishonored if they had healthy food choices and they ate healthy, but they still didn't finish the plate? No, it did not. It did not. It doesn't go against the value. Okay, great. So let's review this regulation that they have to finish their full plate of food. Is this a regulation made from fear or to honor this family value? So we uncovered in coaching that it was made from fear. And because it was made from fear, then what was the result? When we create boundaries from fear and not family values, when we have to enforce those boundaries, we enforce them with anxiety, with fear, with frustration. And that's what was happening. Her children were not finishing the full plate of food, and she was getting really frustrated, and she was yelling, and it was a whole mess. When she started incorporating the family values in her boundaries, things started to turn around a lot quicker and easier because she was able to reflect, hey, how can else, how can we, I'm trying to think about the question. How can else, ay, Marcela, second language learner here. How can we honor the family value here? And that's a question that she's asking her kids when she struggles to get them through something. Okay, I see that you're struggling with this. I'm struggling. We're both struggling together. Let's figure it out. This is the value. This is our family value. How can we honor that value? What can we do to honor that value and co-create with the children the boundaries? If they're little bitty ones, you give them options because they don't know how to co-create boundaries with you. What was the boundary that she co-created with her kids? That they don't have to finish their plate as long as they're eating healthy. That was awesome. And that solved the meal times power struggles. That was great. Let's review. Number one, healthy boundaries without yelling provide a range of freedom. Number two, healthy boundaries provide how a family system works and they're not made with fear. And number three, healthy boundaries honor a value, a family value, and they're not a projection of something I'm scared is going to happen. So that's the structure. If you follow these three steps, there is no way for you to misstep or have a mistake setting healthy boundaries in your family. There is no reason why would you fail. Follow it. And of course, if you need us to help you follow it, to help you on the application, we can help you as well. That's exactly what we do in HIC Parenting Education. Us parenting coaches are not here to teach you more stuff. We're here to help you apply what you already know that you're having a hard time applying. That's what we do in coaching. Coaching is not a class, coaching is helping you apply. Imagine as if you are a soccer player and the coach doesn't teach you how to play unless you don't know. A coach plans with you how to play so you win, so you have the best chances for winning. That's what we do in HIC parenting. Would you share this episode with a friend? If this episode gave you information, value, insight, wow, like yes, I feel empowered to set boundaries. Share it with one friend. Tell them, hey, I met this girl, Marcela. She's a parenting coach. She's awesome. And she has a podcast, the Parenting with Understanding podcast. I know that you will enjoy it as well. Stop what you're doing, share it right now, unless you're driving. And I want to let you know that it only takes understanding of yourself and of your children's needs to transform your parenting. That's Parenting with Understanding. I'll see you next time.